Hi everyone, so I just wanted to make this quick little video to show you my new crochet doll that I have designed. So this is what she looks like, and her name is Cindy, and I have designed her specially for Christmas. So she has these cute little red shoes, and then tights, and then this super soft and fluffy dress with the little pockets, and then this is what her face looks like, and then her hair is in bunches with little red ribbons at the back. So I'm not sure if any of you remember, but last year I designed a basic crochet doll pattern, and their names were Holly and Delilah, and Cindy is just an adjusted version of that pattern. So I have made a few little adjustments to make her more Christmassy and just to add a little bit more to her. So if you would like to learn how to make Cindy here, then I will leave a link in the description box below this video to the written pattern. And the written pattern includes really clear and detailed instructions on how to make her. Or you can follow the tutorial for Holly and Delilah, so my basic crochet doll tutorial, but you want to follow that tutorial with the adjustments that I will show you in this video in a second. So you can either follow the written pattern or my other tutorial with the adjustments that I will show you in a second, and links to both of those can be found in the description box below. So now if you were following the pattern or the tutorial for Holly and Delilah, the first adjustment or the first change that you want to make for Cindy is at the end of round 8. So I have followed the tutorial or the pattern, and I have made the little shoe, and I have come to the end of round 8. So I have worked round 8 all the way around. And then at the end of round 8, we have to work a slip stitch. But if you were making Cindy, then you want to change colours whilst working that slip stitch. So we're going to go down here into the first single crochet of the round. And then we're going to drop the yarn that we were using, and then take our new yarn or our new colour, place this over the end of our crochet hook and pull it through. So pull through both loops. And there we have changed colours at the end of round 8 whilst working the slip stitch. And now you do not want to fasten off, you want to leave this yarn attached to the ball. So I'm not going to cut this cream yarn that I used for round 8. You want to leave it here attached to the ball, and we can pick it up again at the end of next round. And now we can move on to round 9. And for round 9, you want to do the exact same thing as the pattern for Holly and Delilah says. So you want to chain 1. And now we're going to do 8 single crochets, or 1 single crochet into each of the first 8 stitches. And we're using our new colour here, but we have not fastened off the colour that we were using. So do 8 single crochets. So like that. So there we have those 8 single crochets, and now we're going to do 2 single crochets together over the next 2 stitches. So this is the exact same thing as the pattern or tutorial for Holly and Delilah says. You're doing the same thing for Cindy. And now you want to do 7 single crochets to finish. So there I have worked those 7 single crochets to finish round 9. And now to finish off this round, we're going to work a slip stitch into the first single crochet that we worked. But for Cindy, we're going to change colours back to the yarn that we were using before. So back to the yarn that we dropped at the end of last round. So you want to go into this first single crochet of the round here. And they can always be a little bit tricky to get into. And then you want to drop the yarn that you were using and then pick your old yarn back up. So this is the yarn that we still have attached to the ball here, and you want to yarn over and pull through both loops on your hook like that. So there we have changed colours at the end of round 9 whilst working the slip stitch, and you do not want to fasten off the yarn that we were using, so leave this yarn attached to the ball. And now we can move on to round 10. So to begin round 10 for Cindy, you want to chain 1, and this chain 1 does not count as a stitch, and we're just going to do 1 single crochet into every single stitch. So go down into the first stitch here and do 1 single crochet, and then do 1 single crochet into the next, and just keep doing this all the way around. And with Cindy, we are not going to be using our stitch marker. So if you're following the pattern for Holly and Delilah, it says that you need to start using a stitch marker at the beginning of round 10. But if you're making Cindy, you do not need to do that. So just do 1 single crochet into each stitch around. So I have finished working that all the way around for round 10. So we chained 1 and then did 1 single crochet into every single stitch. And you should find that in that round you work 16 single crochets. And now to finish off this round, we're going to do a slip stitch into the first single crochet that we worked. So here we have our first single crochet, and go down into that stitch. And like I said, that can always be a bit tricky, but now we're going to change colours whilst working this slip stitch. So drop the yarn that you were using and then take your new yarn here. So this is the yarn that we dropped at the end of last round, and you want to pick this back up and yarn over and pull through both loops on your hook. So there we have changed colours back to the yarn that we were using before at the end of round 10. And now, as usual, you do not want to cut this yarn, so do not fasten off, leave this attached to the ball, and we can pick it back up at the end of next round. So there we have finished round 10 of the legs, and we can now move on to round 11. So now if you were making Cindy, for the next 5 rounds, so for rounds 11, 12, 13, 14 and 15, so 5 rounds, we are just going to repeat round 10, so the round that we just did. So to begin each round, you want to chain 1, and that chain 1 never counts as a stitch. And then we are just going to do 1 single crochet into every single stitch around. So go down into this first stitch here, and do 1 single crochet, and then do 1 into the next stitch. And just keep doing this all the way around, 1 single crochet into each stitch, and then when you reach the end of the round, you want to do a slip stitch into the first single crochet that you worked and change to your other colour. So change colours whilst working the slip stitch. And you never want to fasten off once you have changed colours. You always want to just leave that yarn attached to the ball, and then we can pick it back up at the end of next round. So you want to do 5 repeats of round 10, and you should find that you are alternating between your 2 colours for the striped tights. So for rounds 11, 12, 13, 14 and 15, just chain 1, do 1 single crochet into each stitch, and then finish with a slip stitch and change colours at the end of the round. So I have finished working those rounds, so I have come to the end of round 15. So you can see we have rounds 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 and 15. And now if you were looking at the pattern or the tutorial for Holly and Delilah, you will have seen that in round 15 it says to work into the back loop of each stitch, but we are not doing that for Cindy. The only reason we do that for Holly and Delilah is so that we get the little ridge with the top of the socks, but we're not doing that for Cindy as she is wearing tights. So you want to do 5 repeats of round 10, so we have rounds 8, 9, 10, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 repeats of round 10. And you can see we have our little tights forming, and this is what the colour changes look like on the back, so they're pretty neat. And now we can move on to round 16. So what we're going to do is we're going to start off with a chain 1, and as usual that does not count as a stitch. And now we're going to do 2 single crochets together over the first 2 stitches. So go down into this first stitch and yarn over and pull up a loop, and now go into the next stitch and yarn over and pull up a loop, and then yarn over and pull through all 3 loops. So do 2 single crochets together, and now you want to work 6 single crochets. So do 1 into the first stitch, 1 into the next, and keep going until you have 6. So like that, and now we're going to repeat that again. So you want to do 2 single crochets together again, and now 6 more single crochets. And now to finish off round 16, you want to do a slip stitch into the first stitch that you worked. So this was our first set of 2 single crochets together, and we're going to change colours back to the yarn that we dropped at the end of last round at the same time. And now do not fasten off at the end of this round, leave that yarn attached to the ball, and now we can move on to round 17. And I'm actually just going to go ahead and add some stuffing to the bottom of the leg here before I move on to round 17. So like that, so I have added some stuffing to the bottom of the leg, and now we can move on to round 17. So now for the next 16 rounds of the leg, so for rounds 17, 18, 19, 20, all the way through to the end of round 32, so 16 rounds, you just want to do rounds of plain single crochet with a slip stitch and colour change at the end of each round. So for round 17, you want to do chain 1 and then 1 single crochet into every single stitch, and then work a slip stitch into the first single crochet that you worked, and change colours to the yarn that you dropped at the end of last round. And then you do not want to fasten off that colour that you just dropped, and then move on to the next round. Chain 1, work 1 single crochet into every single stitch, and then work a slip stitch and change colours back to that yarn that you dropped in the previous round, and do not fasten off at the end of that round either. So you want to keep working those rounds, and once you have done that, this is what you should have. So this is what our legs should look like. So you want to work all the way up to the end of round 32, and you want to add some stuffing to your leg as you go. So every 3 to 4 rounds, add a little bit of stuffing, and you should find that in each round you work 14 single crochets. And if you have the written pattern, I have added a checklist at the end of the pattern that you can tick off each round as you go so that you don't lose track. So then once you have done that first leg, you want to go ahead and make the second leg in the exact same way. So if you have the written pattern, all of the instructions are written really clearly on there. Or if you're following the tutorial for Holly and Delilah, you want to do rounds 1 to 8, just as the other tutorial shows. And then you want to pick up with this tutorial at the end of round 8 for the rest of the legs. And then once you have done that, so once you have both of your legs completed, you now want to move on to round 1 of the body. And if you have the written pattern, it's all included on there. So all of the instructions are included on the written pattern. But if you are following the tutorial for Holly and Delilah, you just want to go to round 1 of the body, and the rest of Cindy is exactly the same as Holly and Delilah. So it's exactly the same for the rest of that pattern. There is no difference to her body or her head or her hair or her arms. It's all exactly the same. The only difference with the actual body of the doll are the legs and the tights. So if you are following the other tutorial, follow round 1 of the body through to the end, so the top of the head and the arms exactly the same as Holly and Delilah, and go ahead and sew her all together and add her little face, and then we can move on to the dress. And the dress is obviously completely different to Holly and Delilah, and I will show you how to do that now. So we can now move on to making Cindy's really soft and fluffy Christmas dress. And for this dress, you will need to use some kind of boucle yarn. So I am using Drops yarn. So I am using Drops Alpaca Boucle yarn, and this is worsted weight boucle yarn. So worsted weight boucle yarn, and this is going to give us our really soft and fluffy dress. And we are using a 4mm hook, just as we did with the rest of the doll. And you want to start off by making a slip knot. So take your yarn and take your finger, wrap the yarn around your finger once and then twice. Then take the first loop and pull it over the second loop, and then take the second loop and pull it all the way over your finger. You then want to take your crochet hook, go in through this space and pull tight. And there we have a slip knot. And now once you have your slip knot, we are now going to make our foundation chain, and we are going to chain 21. So you want to chain 1, 2, 3, 4, all the way up to 21. I have my foundation chain, and we can now move on to round 1. So round 1 is just a really simple round of double crochet. We're just going to do 1 double crochet into every single chain, and we're going to work our first one into the second chain from the hook. So here is the first chain from the hook, and here is the second chain. And I know it's really tricky to see with this yarn, but if you hold your work up to a window, it makes it much easier to see where your chains are. So here we have our first chain from the hook, and here we have our second chain, and we're going to yarn over and go down into this chain. So there we have 1 double crochet into the second chain from the hook, and now we're going to yarn over and go down into the next chain. And like I said, it's really tricky to see where your chains are, but if you hold it up to a window, it makes it much easier and you can actually see where your stitches are. And now do 1 double crochet into this chain, and then do 1 double crochet into the next one along, and just keep going until you reach the end of the chain. 1 double crochet into every single chain. So I have finished working that all the way along for round 1, and at the end of this round you should have 20 double crochets, and I would definitely make sure that you check that you do have 20 double crochets at the end of this round, as it is so easy to go wrong with this yarn. So hold it up to a window and then count and check that you have 20 stitches, and just be patient when using this yarn. It can be a little bit tricky, but you just do have to take your time with it. And now we can move on to round 2. So to begin this round, you want to chain 1 and turn, and we're going to start off by doing 3 double crochets. So do 1 double crochet into the first stitch, and then do 1 double crochet into the next stitch, and then do 1 into the third stitch along. So we're doing 1 double crochet into each of the first 3 stitches. And now into the next stitch, we're going to do 2 double crochets. So yarn over, go into this stitch and do 1, and then work a second double crochet down into this same one. So there we have worked 1 double crochet into 3 stitches and then 2 into the next. And we're going to keep repeating that all the way along for round 2. So we're going to do 1, 1, 1, 2, 1, 1, 1, 2 all the way along. So do 1 double crochet into each of the next 3. So 1 there, and 1 into the next, and 1 into the next, and then do 2 double crochets both into the next stitch. And just keep repeating that all the way along. So there I have finished working that all the way along for round 2, and at the end of that round you should now have 25 double crochets. And now we can move on to round 3. So to begin this round, chain 1 and turn. And to begin round 3, we are going to do 1 double crochet into each of the first 4 stitches. So you want to yarn over and go down into this first stitch here, as our chain 1 did not count as a stitch, and do 1 double crochet. Then do 1 into the second one along, and 1 into the third, and then the fourth. So we're doing 4 double crochets, 1 into each stitch, and now into the next stitch here you want to do 2 double crochets, both into this one. So we have done 1 double crochet into each of the first 4 stitches, and then 2 double crochets into the next stitch, and we're going to keep repeating that all the way along for round 3. We're going to do 1 1 1 1 2 1 1 1 1 2 all the way along. So 1 double crochet into 4 and then 2 into the next, repeated for round 3. There we have finished working that all the way along for round 3, and at the end of that round you should now have 30 double crochets, and it's really important that you have that number, so I would recommend that you just quickly go back and double check that you do have 30, and if you do we can move on to round 4. So to begin this round you want to chain 1 and turn, and this chain 1 does not count as a stitch, and we're just going to do 1 double crochet into every single stitch for this round. So we're going to yarn over and go down into the first stitch and do 1 double crochet, and then do 1 into the next, and just keep doing this all the way along for round 4. 1 double crochet into every stitch, and you should find that you have 30 double crochets at the end of this round as well. So keep working that for round 4. So there we have finished working that for round 4, and like I said, at the end of this round you should still have 30 double crochets, and I would definitely recommend that you just quickly go back and double check that you do have that number. And if you do, we can move on to round 5. And round 5 is a really important round as we are going to be adding in the shape of our dress. So to begin this round you want to chain 1 and turn, and this chain 1 does not count as a stitch. So we're going to start off by doing 1 double crochet into this first stitch here. So do 1 double crochet into the first one, and now into the next stitch along we're going to do 2 double crochets. So do 2 both into this next stitch, and now we're going to do 1 into the next. So do 1 double crochet into the next stitch along, and then 2 into the next. So do 2 double crochets into this next one, and now do 1 into the next stitch. So do 1 double crochet into this next one, like that. So there we have done 1 2 1 2 1. So we have done 1 double crochet, 2 double crochets, 1 2 1, and this is going to form the first half of the front of our dress. And now we can chain 2, so we're going to chain 1 and 2, and then skip the next 5 stitches. So you want to count, and this can be pretty tricky unless you're up against a window, so you want to count 1 2 3 4 5. So we're going to skip 5 stitches, and then into the next stitch here we're going to do a double crochet. So this would be the 6th one along, and we're going to yarn over and go down into that stitch and do 1 double crochet. So we have done chain 2 and skip 5 stitches, and that has created our first little sleeve. And we have done 1 double crochet into the next stitch here, and this is the first stitch of the back of our dress. So now we can do 2 double crochets into the next one, like that. And we're going to repeat that. So we're going to repeat 1 double crochet into one stitch and then 2 double crochets into the next stitch 4 more times. So you want to do 1 double crochet into one stitch and then 2 double crochets into the next stitch 4 more times, or 5 times in total for the back of our dress. So we're going to do 1 double crochet into the next stitch here, and then 2 into the next stitch, and keep repeating that until you have 5 of those sets in total. So we have done 2 now, so we need to do that 3 more times. So I have finished working that along for the back of the dress. So we have 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2, and now we are going to make our next sleeve, and we're going to do the same thing as we did before. We're going to chain 1 and 2 and then skip the next 5 stitches. So skip 1 2 3 4 5, and then into the next stitch. So this would be the 6th one along. We're going to yarn over, go into this stitch and do 1 double crochet, like that. And now we can move on to the last little section here. So this is the other half of the front. So we have done 1 double crochet into this first stitch here. So now we're going to do 2 double crochets into the next stitch. So do 2 into this next one, and then we're going to do 1 into the next, and then 2 double crochets into the next one, and then you should find that you have 1 stitch left at the end, and we're going to do 1 double crochet into this last stitch. So we have done 1 2 1 2 1 for the other half of the front, and there we have almost completed round 5 of our dress. So we now have a front, a back and 2 sleeves. So when you lay it out like this, we have our front with an opening and then a back and 2 sleeves. And now to finish off this round, we are going to work a slip stitch into the first double crochet that we worked. So work a slip stitch. So there we have joined at the end of round 5, and the rest of our dress is going to be joined from now onwards. So we just have this little opening at the front where we will place a few buttons, and the rest of it is going to be joined. So we are now on to round 6, and to begin this round you want to chain 1 and turn, and as usual that chain 1 does not count as a stitch, and you just want to do 1 double crochet into every single stitch for this round. So we're going to do 1 double crochet into the first stitch and 1 into the next, and just keep doing this all the way around. 1 double crochet into every single stitch, and in this round you should find that you have 34 double crochets. So we have come to the end of that round, and now what you want to do to finish off is work a slip stitch into the first double crochet that you worked. So there we have finished that round, and now we can move on to round 7. So for the rest of this dress, you simply want to repeat the round that we just did, so round 6. So you just want to keep doing rounds of plain double crochet until you have the length dress that you like. So you want to chain 1 and turn to begin each round, and then do 1 double crochet into every single stitch. And you can do that round as many times as you like. You can do that 3 times, 4 times, 5 times, 6 times, but I did 8 repeats of round 6 for my dress. And you want to make sure that you're working a slip stitch at the end of each round to join. So keep repeating that round, and then once you have done that, this is what you will have. So you will have the length of your dress completed, and you can then fasten off. So pull your yarn out and your hook and cut your yarn, leaving a long tail to weave in later. And then you want to go ahead and weave all of your ends nice and securely into the inside of your dress. And then what I did was I added 2 little buttons on the top left hand side. I added these little Christmas tree buttons, and then I just used the spaces in between the stitches on the opposite side as buttonholes. So this yarn is quite stretchy, so you will find that it will stretch quite a lot, and you can use the spaces in between the stitches as buttonholes as they stretch, so they can stretch around a nice sized button like this. So then once I had weaved all of my ends in and I had added my buttons, I decided to add these little pockets to the dress. And now these are completely optional, you don't have to add them, it looks really cute without them. But what I did was just using the colour from my tights here, I just made a little square, and then I just sewed it down here, here and here. So that is it for this video. I hope you enjoyed it and found it easy to follow. Please make sure to subscribe to my channel for more crochet videos. So in the description box below this video, I will leave a link to where you can find the written pattern. So the written pattern, like I said, is really easy to follow, and it includes all of the instructions for Cindy on there. And in the description box below this video, I will also leave a link to my Instagram and Twitter accounts. So I always like to post updates and pictures on there, especially Instagram, and I would love to see photos of your crochet work on there as well. And thank you again for watching. Bye.